started, and we'll just go ahead and say 7:01. And Paula, if we can go ahead and start with roll call, please.
District 1 Alderman Miguel Aguirre.
Here.
District 2 Alderman Richard Hughes.
Here.
District 3 Alderman David Emery.
Present.
District 4 Alderman Michael Rodriguez.
Here.
And District 5 Alderman Matthew Martinez.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. If we can all please rise, let's go ahead and take care of our pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay, Council, let's go ahead and move on into item number 4. This is a presentation, discussion, and direction concerning budget policy assumptions and review of budget for fiscal year 2024-2025. Like we said, we're going to get started. This is a process that has a few steps in there as we get closer in the next few months, but this is where we kind of start laying the foundation. So I'll turn it over to Zach so we can go ahead and get started with this.
Yeah, so thank you, Mayor, Council. Thank you also for moving it to 7. I appreciate that. Take care of some things. Yeah, so the data sheet I kind of laid out for y'all. I don't know if this is something that's y'all have done before, but I like to start off with kind of some basic assumptions as we're starting to build out the budget for the coming year. And so kind of outline some of those, and I'd really like, some direction from council on those assumptions and how we're moving forward before we really start bringing forth actual numbers to y'all. So this is more of kind of that, as the mayor indicated, that introductory kind of meeting to everything. And then next time you'll actually start to see some numbers and where the departments are looking and where they kind of want to go as well. So we can literally go down the list if y'all would like, but it's really meant to be a
Paper copy of that.
We can get you one. Can you print a paper copy of that? It's really meant to be kind of an open conversation amongst everybody. I don't, necessarily have just one, or two. Of how we want to kind of go forth. I did kind of outline it as it kind of starts with, just some basic assumptions on revenues, and then a little bit on expenses as well. So go ahead.
Are we still looking at budget like 16 mil, if I remember correctly, the overall budget? Is that where we stand right now, approximately?
Right now, I feel like our revenues around 16.3, probably with what Zach and I talked about. I see it increasing maybe to 300.5 million. Kevin and I keep going back and forth on some numbers, so we'll explain that in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess we can just go ahead and start. So on the property tax revenues, so we did receive as statutorily required by April 30th, and those estimates, the preliminary estimates were included for y'all of the taxable value for each of the counties that we obviously are a part of. And so based on that and in how I've done it in previous cities, is I like to kind of calculate a range, so that way we're being conservative on our numbers and what we're putting in the budget. And so my breakdown of that was also included after those preliminary. And normally when I've gone through budget conversations with previous councils, try to take that low end of the range just so we are staying conservative in our number of what we're going to be calculating based on if we were to do that, which is that 279, 822, 479 and 10 cents. Based on an existing tax rate, if we kept the tax rate the same, it's about $1,086,000 in property tax revenues that we would anticipate under that particular amount.
And that's just in the properties. between
That's
all-
just
all
on property
three-
tax
All three
revenues.
counties?
Correct.
Millions.
And this is of course, yeah, $1,086,000.
$1,086,000.
Yeah. Currently, we listed in the current budget at $1 million, I think is what we had. So it did, obviously that does increase a little bit from what our current budget is. If you notice in the preliminary taxable values, one thing I thought was very interesting is based on the 2023 true taxable value from Atascosa County, which of course is our biggest county, the preliminary taxable value actually decreased, which is very weird and surprising given the growth that we obviously know is happening in Atascosa County in our area. Now, these are just preliminary numbers. They're required to give them by April 30th. They're factoring in the protests that they've received, generally what they think is going to be approved or not approved. And so this is just a preliminary estimate, but obviously that's all we have to go on by for now. I think in June, about mid-June is when they actually have to produce the certified estimate, so we'll have a better picture of what that would be. And that's also when we would know what the no new revenue tax rate, the de minimis and all those things that have come in the last couple of years on a tax rate standpoint. So, so we do anticipate an increase, but that again, that $1,086,000 is based on keeping the tax rate the same. So that does not anticipate any increase if council so chose to do so. So. But really just looking on the property tax side, looking for, again, we're trying to do a baseline budget to start and give you some picture of where we're at. And so that's needs some direction on, are y'all comfortable with using that particular low end of the range, or do you want to use the true 294 taxable value that they produced from each of the counties?
Where are you showing that $1,086,000 value?
So that's basically taking, I didn't put that in there. I apologize. Yeah, so if you look at the projected range page that I gave you, taking that 279 end of the budget, can you print a whole packet for Councilman Emery? Thank you. Obviously, timesing by our current tax rate of 3,883, and then dividing by 100, that gets you that 186. The other thing on property tax revenues that Lynette and I have talked about, we're in the last couple of years, we've been averaging about 95 to 96% collection rate. So that's the other thing we do have to keep in mind. We're not collecting everything from property tax revenues or property taxes that are assessed. So that does change a little bit. 96 is pretty dang good though. So that's a lot more than some small cities get. So
That's a common thing that we found out. We're
Yeah.
doing good in a sense.
Yeah.
With our new tax collector.
Yeah.
Actually,
Did Atascosa County Appraisal District give you any clues to why the numbers were down?
no, I did ask, but they had not gotten back to me. I did ask for a breakdown because what they sent, which I think the mayor just showed you there, doesn't really give a breakdown of where the increases or decreases are, like in what kind of property categories we're seeing it in. And so I did ask for that. I did get that from Bexar County and a little bit from Medina County. So I was trying to get with Atascosa, but I hadn't had the chance. They haven't gotten back to me yet, is basically. But I mean, that's 20 million in taxable value decrease from what they're preliminary estimating to what the current taxable value is, which seems significant to me.
Yeah.
Since we know the three, or at least the two that are already building, are in, and I know we're not going to see some of that right away, but the growth is happening in Atascosa, not necessarily in Medina and Bexar for us. So.
that would be interesting. At least honestly, we can say that this is the lower end.
Yes,
you know?
I mean,
So,
definitely.
anything in the sense of the positives. I'd rather not get a high end and then we're left.
Yeah.
So starting with a low as part of our calculations.
And that's also why I like to produce that 5% range, 5% under what the total preliminary value that they're estimating it to be, as well as that high end, just so you can see that picture. And then that if we're more conservative, then in the end, we'll have excess revenue that we can tackle various capital projects that we need to be taken care of. Obviously, we don't want to be too far out, but we want to get semi-close. But that's why I produce that 5%, and really just looking to see if that's what y'all want to go with for now, while we baseline the budget. Moving just to other kind of revenue, obviously for sales tax and municipal court kind of revenues, we would just take an average or a kind of looking at the average of the previous 3 fiscal years to kind of estimate what that's going to look like. And then also what our current year projections are going to be. And that's pretty typical when you're trying to forecast those other revenue sources. And that's court, sales tax, that's also like fees and everything from like permitting and that kind of stuff. The other thing I wanted to note is that we really do need, as a part of the budget process, to evaluate our total city fees. I indicated in the data sheet there, if you'll notice that House Bill 1922 did change some things as far as building permit fees are concerned. So basically, if a building permit fee is assessed or approved as a fee by the governing body, in 10 years' time, if you never touch it again or never even like look at it at least and evaluate if it still makes sense, then that fee goes away and we can't charge it. So what most cities do as a part of their budget is adopt the fee schedule every single year, so that way they're just staying on top of it. And so that's what we would look to do this time. I'm not necessarily suggesting we go up on fees, but it is something that we should look at as a part of our budget process. And obviously, I'd want to bring that back at a different workshop meeting because we don't have that in front of you this evening. But just wanted to highlight that we need to start building that into the budget process going forward. I think that would be the most prudent for us. So, and that would also give us an opportunity to actually have a true fee schedule adopted by ordinance that we can always look to, can be codified so everybody can see it on Muni Code and things like that, and we'll have easy access. Right now, we're trying to pull from various sources where we think the fees might be, and it makes it difficult on staff. So. So that's on the revenue side. If anybody has any questions or any suggestions or how y'all want to proceed on that.
What do we have right now in the sales tax?
My computer is not pulling up right now. I mean, my.
Encode.
My encode is not pulling up. I'm really computer right now. Unless I can run you my budget real quick.
Yes. Go
I was just wondering to see how much since we're looking at revenues, let's just highlight for the council what the amount is for each one so we have an idea that we have. I'm still curious about the Atascosa, why I didn't.
Yeah.
That's very interesting with everything that has been going on.
The only thing I can think is they just received a lot of protests. I mean, because they're factoring that in their estimated value. But 20 million is a lot of protests. I would, even if you would have come in closer to the 254 that we saw last year, I would, okay, maybe. But especially when we're seeing, both in Medina and in Bear, increases,
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think Bear was 963,000 up to 1,000,005. And then Medina County 56 to 61. So some decent increases in those respects.
Yeah, well, definitely we're taking a look, or maybe they might have not looked at one of the quadrants in there.
Who knows?
They
Yeah,
just did something wrong.
Yeah.
it's possible it could be an
Click,
error
click,
on their
click,
part.
Click, and you do a summary off of what they have at the totals. Try to do that.
It again, we will get their actual certified in June, I believe it is. So we'll have a better picture of what each of these will look like around that time.
Mhm. Good. That would be good.
Yeah, so again, I don't know what I didn't run the 294, but I'm basing that 1,086,000 on a even lower. So I don't see how it would be any lower than that 1,086,000. I think it would be it's going to be more. These preliminary tax values can change. Again, they're just estimating what what the protests and things like that look like, because you have to think. So the state says you have to produce CADs, or you have to produce the preliminary estimates by April 30th, but protests can be filed all the way up until May 15th. So there's still a bunch of time in there that more could be filed, which is why I like to take an additional 5% cover in that and give us a little cushion, so we're still being conservative enough that for any chance of more protests coming in. So. And again, this anticipates the same tax rate. So.
End up with that'll be good. Yeah, following that equation, sometimes it stays pretty close, or it goes down a little bit even too.
Yep.
So it just depends. Just depends on what we have. But the earlier the better. So if we notice that there is a gap in there, we can start thinking about, okay, what are the options for us to be able to fill the gap that we actually need for the things that we need to make sure that we take care of on there. While we're still waiting,
Yeah.
council on there, one of the things that Zach did, and for those that are new to the council, so this is a spreadsheet.
Oh, yes.
This one right here, this spreadsheet, if you remember, this is the one that we actually voted on last year. We did a priority on it and said, hey, this is our number 1, number 2, number 3, just so we could actually prioritize our efforts for our staff. So I think in the future, Zach, it might be good to pull it out again and put it out for the council to look and revalidate where our priorities are for the staff, the things that we need to take into consideration, or is there something new that we need to go ahead and take care of to make sure that we stay on track for the things. Because I think with the water infrastructure repairs and replacement, I think we pretty much have that lined up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So those would be the discussion points that we can actually have for the council, be able to help you all out and keep you guys focused on the things that we need to go ahead and do.
Thank you, man.
Okay? All right.
So I think shows here 1,005,000 on sales tax.
Tax collections. Let's see. Oh, there we go.
That's what we budgeted. Currently taken in, and of course, sales tax always comes a month behind, so always remember that. But it's at 841,938 right now.
So sales taxes is running around $100,000 to $120,000 per. So it just depends. I expect to see a little bit more over the summer. I think we'll be right where we need to be there to absorb the rest of that $600,000. This is booked through April. Remember, I haven't got May in.
So for last year, we're estimating for Alderman, or for the regular property taxes, we're estimating at 1 million.
Yes.
Okay. And now we're estimating 1.8.
Well, again, using the range that I'm saying that I would suggest to use $1,000,008. $1,086,000, not $1,008,000.
Oh, $1,086,000. Okay.
Make sure that's clear. Yeah,
Uh,
$1,086,000.
We were about to have-
So it's pretty much, so you're estimating about the same then,
It's
basically?
very close. It's very close. But I think if once we figure out what's going on with the Atascosa, obviously that increases the total for each of the three counties, and then ultimately what that range looks like. And if we're basing it on the low end range, that number is just going to go up. Just estimating, if you even went like a cent higher on the tax rate, you're looking at $1,001,000, and then you're looking at 2 cents on the tax rate, or close to 2 cents. You're looking at almost $1,120,000. So there's not a lot of difference when you get in there when you start raising it just a little bit. But yeah, $1,086,000, not $1,008,000.
The council, just so you won't get confused, you'll probably see the garbage collection, but there's funds that we bring in revenue and then we turn it around and have to pay. So it's not like a actual true blue, we made this much money.
Yes.
And then we use some of that also to do the supplemental, if I'm not mistaken, like with brush pickup.
Yeah.
So waste management doesn't do that, so we have to pay it out of some of the money that we collect so we can have that little extra every month for our residents to get their stuff picked up. Okay. So that number is not, it's accounted for basically.
Yep.
Just so you have an idea. Okay. So that's where we get our money. That's where we end up getting our funds out of.
So in some of that, you're gonna see on there where you see fines and stuff for court, it was put into another area. So when you see that there, that's not that we're not getting them. It's just it's in another,
Well, you can tell in the physical activity how much you collected, right?
no, sir.
No.
So, no. So some of it's there, but then I'll have to transfer it out, because it is, you would have to add these two together. That's kind of what's got me behind.
But if those were the estimates that we had on there,
Um,
I would have said from last year, was that what you were targeting? Right?
Yes. So, what, you know, let me tell you right now. 475,000, and where that was what, 351,000.
Yeah. So it's the actual.
I got through that over there. We're probably going to meet that or more. I don't know how we'll do in the next one.
Got it. Got it.
So those numbers will not be zero once you see the final product.
Okay. Council, any questions on the revenue? Anything at all? Kind of gives you the big picture where money goes.
And again, what we'll do if everybody's comfortable with using that low end of that range, then when we actually bring all the numbers back and show you a little more complete budget, then that's what we'll be using, so you can kind of get that picture of where we're at for projecting out. So.
And you said you'll have more of an answer in June from Matasosa County?
Yeah, so the certified values have to come out in June by each of those counties, by every county, so by the taxing entities. So we'll have a better picture of that. Now they could before that. I mean, it's possible even by our next meeting in June 6th. They could give me a better picture of why that number has changed, and then obviously I'll relay that to y'all. But
So important for us, just so we can kind of figure out whether or not we do an internal increase or we actually have to go out to the voters again, based on the percentage.
Yeah.
But, okay.
All right, so that was revenue side. On the expenses, so obviously except for, some basic line items that Lynette and I have already started looking at, Generally, we're, for a baseline standpoint, we're trying to keep everything pretty much the same on the expense side. And obviously, we will get more information from the departments on what they're looking at and where they're projecting expenses can go. And we'll have those deeper conversations with council at that time. But to kind of start off, that's how we would like to base everything off of, is just using, kind of a line for line on that. Obviously, any forecasting or anything using a conservative approach at that. I did put inclusion of 3% increase on health insurance. We have spoken with the broker. It's probably going to be closer to 2%. That's not a huge difference there. But that's pretty good given that some of the increases in probably the last couple of years we've seen in the healthcare industry go up quite a bit. So we'd be including that. And we'll continue to have conversations with TML on that. Also, I pulled the CPI for the South region, and as reflected in that is a 3 it's at currently in the last month was at 3.3%. And so obviously I'm sure there'll be a lot of conversation on this, but we would like to include a 3% cost of living adjustment based on that. And so I think the CPI in other cities that I've been in was a good indication of, coming up with a concrete number, so that way we're not just stabbing at the wind and saying 4 or 5, 6%. We're actually basing it on some actual data that's being produced. So that's why I like to pull that. And then the other just kind of note on there on expenses that I highlighted was we do have some aging IT infrastructure as far as like workstations are concerned, and some just general computers around the office and some of the other facilities. And so I did include in there in the packet, it's very hard to see and I apologize now that I'm looking at it, a kind of breakdown of where Frontera has said some of the items that they would like to see addressed based on, the age and just general condition of some of the equipment. And so I'm not saying to tackle everything, but I think it would be very prudent to start chipping away at some of those
You
items.
laid it out for a year.
That was from Frontera. So Frontera did produce that. That was not by.
Can you ask them to do an estimate on Windows Server type environment with Active Directory, and see if they come up with a solution on that, and maybe lower costs overall than on the number of workstation. And plus it'll allow you to,
I can definitely ask.
We haven't looked at that. Really good.
Council, just so you know, if you're still looking at the budget report and with the expenses, I do want to point out that there are certain things in there that are more transitory. It's not a true blue expense because we actually get reimbursed for some things, like the building inspections or something like that. There's some costs, but we actually have to show it actually going out, coming in, going out. The other one is like the school crossing guard. That was something that we found out that we were receiving. So we readjusted, and that now it comes in and we give it to the school district, which is the one that is supposed to be receiving that, versus it going into our general fund. So there's some things in there that are true. They're not really expenses. We just have to use them as a way to show them in, show them out. This is the normal accounting, stuff that you have to be able to track how it goes in and goes out. Okay. Yep. No, we'll definitely have some stuff in there.
Last item there, remodel of the city sign. Is that our current city sign?
So we had put money in there in case there was ever, and it was probably not a good description, David. It was for maintenance. It should be maintenance of the city sign, just in case like we ever had bulk burn out or anything where I needed Alamo to come back and do any kind of fixing.
Are we still under warranty?
Yes, sir. It was on for 3 years.
You mean for this one, electronic? Yeah. So-
It's been fine, right? There's been no problems with it?
Yeah, everything's good.
Was this a new line item that we recently? 'Cause I might give some background on this one. The remodel of the city sign.
No, I didn't I went ahead and put that in there for the maintenance of that, but that line item was in there before.
Yeah, so the reason that it was in there before is we had it for, when we had the lettering, buying lettering and everything else. We had for animal control, because we were thinking about putting some kind of sign on the actual,
Building.
on the building itself versus down here where it's at and stuff. And I know when we were looking at budget, we made a decision and said, no, we're not gonna do that. But that was one of the placeholders that we had previously put out there for us to be able to do that. Along with, if we need to do something in Public Works or any other places. I think Public Works still has the old, right, Richie? Isn't it like the old wood?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go, Robbie.
We found it, so we just painted it.
You just painted it and put it up. I mean, I think that's probably the oldest sign. I mean, it looks like it was probably back in what, the 50s, 60s?
Somewhere around there, like I said, we probably thrown it in the back, so we just repainted it.
Put it back, yeah. So that was the reason we put it in there.
It's a historical item now.
I know, it's historical. Now you can't move it. You put it up, now it's gotta stay.
Get a committee going for it.
I know. We can use some of that money to go ahead and put some good primer on it so it protects it, right? Doesn't wear away. But that was one of the reasons, Lynette, just to give you some background of the reason that we had that. If it's the same one, we had to establish something like that just so we can have it there as an opportunity. But of course, it's based on the council when we pass the budget and how we're gonna go ahead and utilize some of that money. It'll be good.
We haven't had to pay Alamo anything for the electronic sign. That's kind of what I had that in there for. So if we wanted to do it, we have money in there.
Yep.
But Robbie doesn't need a new sign.
Yeah.
He painted his.
Oh, we did a due diligence.
We're trying to figure it out.
We're-
Oh, we used that also for, by the way, we did use it before for the park. So there was certain lettering that we replaced and fixed. We also used that money from there too. So it's kind of like a sitting pot of money, so for repair, maintenance and stuff like that. Okay. Any questions on the expenses, council? Anything at all? Anything at all? This is just big picture look for now, just like Zach was saying, but you kind of get an idea of where we actually have or where we actually spend most of our money in there.
So
Right.
from October of last year till now, what did y'all say we collected on the sales tax?
We budgeted 15 or $1.5 million, I'm sorry.
Okay.
We so far up to April have collected the 841,938. So.
Yep.
So we're about 600,000 off.
And that's not including May, you said, right?
Correct.
What do y'all think May would be?
Well, it just depends.
Roughly.
So, I mean, it jumps around on me. So remember, it's a month behind. So I don't think that April's going to come in heavy. My summer months is usually when we start getting 1.2, 1.4 million. So it just, and there's been so many changes with like strikes coming in and some different business opportunities in town. So we're seeing a little bit more variances compared to last year.
I mean, I think Lynette and I in discussion still feel comfortable with that $1.5 million number. I would say for next year, I wouldn't look to probably increase too much until we see additional kind of business activity in town. I mean, we do know the truck stop eventually will be kind of coming online at some point, and we'll see some of that, but I mean, that's just one, right? So, I mean, we're probably we feel comfortable with that $1.5 million, and that's probably where we would stay generally close to that going forward as well.
And overages go to the general fund?
Yeah, right now they're just in the general fund. I mean, it's excess revenue. ideally going forward, I would like to work with y'all in actually establishing a true capital improvement budget where we are taking at the end of the year those excess revenues, putting them in the capital improvement so that way we can start building up and taking care of streets, water, drainage, everything.
So
So
on that, I want my pie chart. My pie chart.
Pie chart.
I want my general fund, my capital fund, and my restricted fund. You'll be able to get, generate one for
I'm
me?
going to do a pie chart.
That way, you simplify picture.
Yeah.
I don't want to know all the
the intricate details. Since we're on, and it's been mentioned real quickly, I'll just say the capital improvement I mentioned in there as well. So obviously we'd like to start looking at that and actually setting aside those projects that we already know about, water tower, booster pump, things that we're paying that are long-term capital projects, and creating those actually in a separate fund. And then obviously we listed in there in the data sheet what we anticipate generally the debt transfer will be this year. So it's a little bit of an increase. I don't remember how much but obviously it does go up for a little bit, the debt transfer, and then eventually it's going to hit that kind of top of the bell curve, and slowly the payments will start coming down. And that's on the million and the 7.5 million COs, 8.5, sorry. So.
And do survey fees, they go into the capital depending on what the survey's for?
It could, yeah. I mean, it depends on if we're surveying for some of those projects, then potentially, yeah, that you would normally see those expenses out of there. Any like engineering costs associated with
Right.
those are typically built out in those capital improvement budgets like that. So, and most of the time, the engineer, whoever's hired to do that. So in this case, a lot like TRC, right? They would then be finding their surveyors to go out and do that. So they would just be billing us out of the engineering services. So.
Go Beans.
Yes, sir.
All right.
And then finally, as the mayor noted already, but while we were waiting on Lynette, I did stick the priority list in there. So take a look at that, kind of see where we're at. We can definitely send that back out without the numbering on it. And so y'all can take a look at that. The other thing would be if y'all have any suggestions of what you want to add, send those to me. So before we send it out, so that way then everybody has a clean slate of what we're looking at priority wise.
Let's do that, Zach.
Yeah,
Send
that's
it
fine.
out first and ask for inputs.
Yep.
And then after the inputs come in, then we'll send it back out for prioritization, okay? So we can prioritize. But it would be good once you bring them in for us to talk about each one of them before
Yes.
we ask everybody to prioritize, so we can refresh ourselves of what we're talking about. Some of them are
Definitely.
pretty broad. So we can kind of get ourselves, make sure that we're all on the same sheet of music. And council, like I said, the reason we're doing this, it's not only for us as a guide, but it's also for our staff. So we don't have to come to them every single time, hey, how about this project? How about this project? This gives them a nice visionary point for the next fiscal year. This is where we want you to focus on, and we can minimize the back and forth, and we can just keep them focused on the things that are important to us. Some of the stuff, we're already working on it. Some of it is already taken care of. So it might be a little bit of reshuffling, but we want to make sure. And we have new folks too, so there might be something that maybe we have not looked at as part of the prioritization. So that's added on there, so then we can go ahead and vote on that.
Can I ask a question, just one, looking at it here on the priorities?
Sure.
We had grants as number 3.
Yes.
Now, was that to hire a grant funding company? Is that what that is for? And, okay, we've done that, so that's,
Mhm.
now, the following question to that is, do we have some grant money flowing in?
One, right now.
Yeah, so there's one of the ones that y'all have seen, y'all approved resolutions for 2, one for radios and the other one was for police overtime. The one for the radios, I think it was about 68,000, give or take. And it was partially or recommended as partial funding. Now that recommendation does still have to go to the governor's office and ultimately the governor's office will be approving for sure. So we don't know for sure that we have that, but at this point, that's the only one that we're aware of. We've had some other stuff go through, but kind of fell short on a couple things. And so at this point, that's all.
So I think the definition of grants has changed, because now that we have grant writers, the focus is going to be on that.
Yeah.
So you might want to relook at these categories.
That's why we're gonna send it back out,
Yeah.
and then everybody
Yeah.
come back.
Yeah.
And then we say, keep that one, delete that one, based on the things that we, at that point, last year, if you all remember, we were really hurting. We still are, but we needed to get the focus, and we wanted to make sure that the staff was working towards getting this, and they did. So in a sense of getting us somebody to go ahead and help us out with that. We still need a lot of work to go ahead and get the grants that go along with that. But some of these grants, if you remember from our discussion, tie into some of these projects
Yeah.
that are in.
I mean,
We have, now that we have.
So-
I mean, even one that
Asking about-
literally I talked to our group EMC that we hired, right, a couple days ago, and not to go into detail what it was, but park improvements, the second one on the list, it was related to improvements at the park.
Yeah.
It was a grant that they were actively trying to go after, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're all kind of interrelated somewhat. Obviously, I'd like to see more activity from them and more involvement in what they're doing, and we're staying on top of that. I know the mayor and I have been having conversations with them. And so we'll continue to do that. So yes, I mean, they're all kind of intermingled, but we definitely want to make sure we're staying on any big ticket items that y'all are very interested in, making sure that we're in line with what y'all are wanting.
Yeah, I think the mayor and David are right on track, because reevaluating these is going to not only give the city direction, but it's going to give them direction as
Yeah.
well.
Yes.
Thank you.
So maybe we can send it out and get, please add, or if you say we don't need this one anymore, just go ahead and put the comments on there so Zach knows. And then we can have a clean sheet.
Yep.
So then in the June meeting,
Probably, I would say maybe the second one in June, or, maybe the first if we get it out and y'all get it back to me quick enough, we can definitely have that. So we'll just play it by ear. But yeah, we do definitely have that in June, because that could change what y'all want to do from a budgetary standpoint too, with numbers. If y'all want us to focus more on parks compared to water and sewer, I'm not saying that, but that's, that could change where you guys think you want to go.
If you could, I don't know how much work it would be or how difficult it would be, but let's take, for example, the exit out of coal mine.
Yeah.
If you could summarize what we have looked at maybe, and not what we're going to look at, but what we had in the past.
Okay.
So that way new people that come in can have the benefit of knowing what's been looked at in the past,
And
and help them understand the rating.
Sure, and I'll rely some of that on y'all as well, because obviously I'm new to the ball game. So, but yes, I mean, I think that we can definitely talk about them, update where we're at, and keep.
the only thing, just a reminder, with that one in particular, council, and I know we need how many council members, but some of them is executive
Yes.
session, so we need to be very sensitive of how we put it out.
Yep.
Okay. But, yeah, definitely, we want to make sure we.
Anybody has any questions on it? I know some of this can be confusing. Just come out and talk to Zach. Just come sit with us. There's no stupid questions like this. And the way that the charter of accounts was set up way for me. I've done a lot of tweaking on it, but some of it is still, you look at it and go, huh? So if there's a question, just ask. We are not gonna, there's no dumb question right now.
So can you get us a monthly breakdown of the sales tax that's brought in?
Yeah, I was hoping to actually show you all that tonight, but my computer's being very intelligent.
And we do, I know you haven't been here yet for one, but in the reports, the monthly reports, we do produce that for y'all in the finance report. So,
See, a main server with Active Directory, you would have that.
Be right there.
No. And again, I'm new, right? So I'm from Terra, right? Is that something that we're locked in with, or have we looked at others to see what,
Yeah, I had brought up the same question.
see if maybe they're saying, hey, we need to upgrade this server, but maybe we don't. Maybe, because again, I deal with it on the outside, but hey, it's all business, right?
Yeah.
So maybe we get another idea of, hey, maybe we don't need to upgrade certain things. We only need to upgrade certain other things. So have we looked at any of that or outside Frontera for that, or are we locked in?
We have not. We do have a contract with Frontera,
That's what I
so
said, we already-
the contract does, I believe it's September, if I'm not mistaken. But that's also in my report for council. On the monthly, it has all those contracts in there, and where we're at, but I believe it's September. So that obviously going forward would be something y'all would be looking at, if that's something y'all want to do. So, thank you.
Yep.
Mayor, do you have any update on the truck stop?
We're waiting.
Office in the,
So we're actively working with TxDOT. It's basically in their ball court to approve, or some costing and some things with it.
still for the water line?
It's for the
Yes.
water line, but that's really the only holdup is the water line. I don't know if this weekend they got power, but when I talked to Rafiq, the developer, last week, he said that he anticipated power coming on this weekend. So, or this weekend. So, so at this point, and I said, what else can we do? And literally it's just the water line. So
They do have power.
they do have some power, but there's some additional CPS power related things that,
Oh,
that
we just had a meeting with them. So,
What's the big holdup? Can you say?
So basically, we want it to be a 12-inch line to connect, extend across. There was months ago, before I got here, there was discussion of doing that, an agreement on TxDOT's side, and then ultimately they higher ups basically reneged on that, for lack of a better word, and then it put it back in our camp. And so we've been working with the more local office as well as the TxDOT, office, the San Antonio office, to come up with an agreement basically on how do we get to a 12. There are 2 3s out there, 2 3-inch lines. So, but we need it to be a 12. So right now, basically we're at a point where they're going to agree to pay up to X amount, and we're going to pay the difference to get it to a 12. It's basically what it is. But they need certain assurances and certain math, just various things that our engineer is trying to provide to them. And we've gone back and forth. And, 2 weeks ago we had a meeting, or a week ago we had a meeting, and it was like, Mayor and I said, I feel like we've had this conversation 15 times. Like,
I know it's
so,
frustrating to us.
yeah,
It's got to be frustrating to the developer.
it is. I get a call
And
weekly.
I get questions all the time from constituents like, hey, are we ever going to open that place over there?
We are. It's just it's taken much longer than it should have, but we're doing everything in our side to make it push through. So
and we have to go, the one thing I'll add, and then we'll go ahead and move on, is we're trying to work with the contractor that is currently working in that area, because it saves us a lot of time versus us assuming it, and it's part of the agreement with TxDOT, because if not, then we have to start from scratch, do the engineering, put it out for an RFP, go through the whole process.
Yep.
You're adding a very long time for us to go through that. So we're trying to use the contractor that is already under contract through them with a modification to their contract
yes,
to be able to fix what they hit.
Yeah.
With us paying the difference.
because that's the other component that they hit a line out there of ours. So
That's because of the drainage, where they didn't bother digging up the water main, so when they put their drainage, it went right through where 3-inch mains are.
Yep.
So that's what started all this.
So that's the reason why also. So we're trying to balance out to try to do that. So
it will happen.
Yep.
It's just unfortunately not the fastest process.
Zach, did you have anything else on the budget
Not
you wanted
unless
to talk about?
Unless there's any other questions or concerns or anything related to what's been presented.
Anything for staff? Anything? Okay, so the next thing is he'll send out the priorities.
Yes.
So we can go ahead and scrub it, add, take off, recommend, and then we'll have it ready for us to go ahead and come back on the 6th of June.
Next budget meeting will be the
We'll
6th.
talk
so-
about each one as they're listed, and those that actually added, they can talk what they wanted to add on there. We'll have a chance to talk, keep it, condense it, and then we'll actually put it out for a vote.
Yes, sir.
We can go ahead and turn it in, and that way we can come up with a prioritization. Okay? All right. Cool beans? All right. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. Good start for our process and get the big picture. Let's go ahead and move on to item number 5. This is the executive session that the City Council, City of Lido may convene an executive session in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, consultations with attorney to discuss and consider the following items: discussion, development, vested rights, statutory requirements, and legal opinion. If you can go ahead and show us, Paola, it's 7:51, and we will locate to the back for us to go ahead and go into executive session.
No,
Oh, he's still here?
he's in the back.
Okay, we'll take care of business.
Well, I think Chief Priest does.
All right, well, let's go ahead and show that we're back from executive session. It is 9:01 PM and no action was taken. So item number 6, discussion and possible action regarding matters discussed in executive session. No action taken on that. Okay. All right, with that in mind, it is still 9:01. Can I have a motion for us to go ahead and adjourn?
I move that we adjourn, sure.
Got a motion to second? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you so much, council. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great evening. Thank you for the pizza once again.
Yes.
Of course. Thank you very much.
That worked out good. All right. Yeah. Take care of stuff. Molly, thank you. Appreciate it. Happy bueno. You all have a great 3-day weekend.
Yes.
Enjoy.
Are you
Warm.
you coming tomorrow night? Senior night, we give out scholarships.
I have it on my schedule. As long as no curveball gets thrown at me, that's what I have it. Yep. So I have that tomorrow night.